Hi everyone, I'm MaryAnn. I'm a voice coach and visual artist from Singapore, currently in Singapore, and welcome to another installment of my weekly vlog series, Find Your Voice. So this is where I share what I'm learning in my journey as an everyday singer, as a voice coach, as someone who is all about expressing myself truly and as authentically as I can. And ultimately, I believe that this whole entire journey is really about finding your capital V voice, which is whatever that thing is that you are longing to express over the course of your entire life, which I think we may not actually know what that is exactly until we look back and see how this whole journey has turned out and what is this masterpiece that we have been attempting to create throughout the years of our lives. And how this is related to our physical expression in our voice is that, the way we express ourselves with our physical voice and the way we express ourselves through speaking or singing is very directly linked to the way we express ourselves throughout our lives and how we live our lives. And so working on our direct means of expression in our voice allows us also to work on how we are expressing ourselves through the way we live our lives, be it pursuing your dreams, creating a worthy and meaningful purpose for yourself, going after whatever it is that truly matters to you. And also, if you really think about it, the things that stop us from being able to really express ourselves are also a lot of times the same things that prevent us from living the life that we've always dreamed of and envisioned for ourselves. So if you have questions about this, feel free to ask them in the comments, or you can also directly message me through any of the links that you see in the write-ups attached to these videos. So this past week, I was reminded of how important it is to be present in our lives. See, the way we live our lives, we're constantly striving towards something, right? Like when we have certain high points in our lives, and a lot of times these high points would be when we have achieved a goal that we have been striving towards, or whether it's in your job, whether it's in your love life, whether it's in your family life, whatever it is, right? We have these high points that we're always working towards. It's like, for example, if you look at your vacation as a high point, then we need money to go on vacation, and so we work very hard for the whole year so that we can save up that money and go on like 2-week vacation when you are able to take your leave for the year. And so our vacation becomes a high point, right? But then all those weeks leading up to that, in terms of your job, your day job, it's like, every single day, clock in, clock out, just to make that money so that you can go on vacation. But really, so when you look at it, that 2-week vacation is the high point for that entire year. And then you have like these 50 other weeks of the year where you are working towards that. And the majority of our lives is actually in these 50 weeks, right? Whereas your 2-week vacation is not really your life. It's just a break from your life, I guess, if you look at it from that angle, of course. So what that means then is that our lives being a series of moments and us living moment to moment, a lot of time is going to be spent striving towards something. A lot of time is going to be spent developing ourselves towards something. Usually towards that high point that we are aiming for. So achieving our goals will be a high point too. And basically, if most of our life is in those 50 weeks of working to strive towards that high point for 2 weeks, then it's really important then to make the most of those 50 weeks, because that is where most of our life occurs. In the moments where we're striving, in the moments where it's mundane, in the moments where we are maintaining our routine structures so that our life can function, they're actually really important moments, even though we may not see it that way, because we are always looking for the high points, because that's how we're wired as human beings. And so if those day-to-day moments are most of our lives, then it's really important to be able to be present to that and being able to make the most of those moments and to fully enjoy and embrace those moments as best we can, whether those day-to-day moments are exciting or whether they are really boring or whether they're really mundane or whether they're really shitty. And a lot of things are outside of our control, right? Like external circumstances that happen that we have no control over, like the weather, like how other people's reactions and engagements with us. We have no control over those things. But we can control how we respond to them. We can control how we deal with them because of our ability to be present to what's really happening. And so being present in this moment becomes a really critical ability that we need to have in order to be able to make the most of our lives. Because if we're not present, then the moment passes, and then the next moment passes, and the next moment passes. And if we are continually harping on what we think life should be, how we expect life to be when then it's not turning out the way we want it to, or if we're constantly looking forward to the high points and, just kind of like, get through this 50 weeks to get to my 2-week vacation, then that also kind of defeats the purpose of us living, right? Because we don't have a lot of time. We may live to 100 years, but in the larger scheme of things, 100 years is really not a lot of time. And if we're only looking forward to those 2 weeks, as a high point in our lives, then effectively that is like 200 weeks out of our lives. And 200 weeks is really not a lot of time. It's the equivalent of like a little less than 4 years. Can you imagine, like, if you're just making the most out of 4 years of the 100 years that you have? Like, if you can make the most out of these 4 years, why not make the most out of 100 years? Like, what's really stopping us from making the most out of those 100 years? So I think it really comes back down to every single moment, are we really being here in this moment? Are we making the most of the life that we have in this moment? Are we making the most of the here and the now? Because how we deal with this here and now it will determine tomorrow. It would determine next week. It would determine ultimately how we live our entire lives and how this entire life is shaped, and how this masterpiece that we're trying to paint over our lives and what it is that we're trying to express over the day-to-day of our lives. This here and now and how we deal with it is exactly how this whole life is going to be shaped. And it's really important to learn to be present also, because in the way we express ourselves, we first of all have to be present with who we are and what it is that we're trying to express in the moment. Whether it's something at work, whether it's because you're a speaker or a singer and you're performing something, you have to be present to yourself first of all. And even in your communication with someone who really matters to you, if you're not fully present in that moment in your expression with them, then your message cannot really fully get across. If you are giving a presentation at work and you're thinking about, did I leave the stove on at home? Then your presentation would not have the full force that it could have if you were fully giving your 100% to it. And to paint a little bit of an extreme scenario here, like let's say an asteroid is headed straight for Earth and it's going to obliterate all life as we know it, and you have just those few minutes left to express how you really feel to the people who matter to you, then are you able to be present to those feelings and to express them, rather than the panic that you are experiencing because this asteroid is about to hit Earth? So are we still able to be present to ourselves in the way we express, even though there are extreme circumstances and a lot of distractions happening around us? So in the practice of us doing our voice exercises, in our singing practice, in our expression practice, part of it is also learning how to be present to ourselves. And that's why I stress the importance of when you're doing your vocal exercises, you want to be doing them 100%, like giving them your 100% attention and focus, because part of that is also about training yourself to be present. You want to be present to your posture as you are singing. You want to be present to the way your vocal structures are moving and maneuvering as you are doing the exercises. You want to be present to how your voice sounds. And this practice, when we do our voice exercises, it's allowing you to become more present to yourself. Because then when you're expressing yourself in the workplace or in a performance, or to share something that really matters to you, to the people who matter to you, then are we 100% there? Are you really 100% there in that moment getting your message across, or are you thinking about something else or worrying about something else, and therefore, which is how most of us live our lives anyway, right? We're not fully present in the here and now. And while it is not probable that we're going to be present 100% of the time, at the very least, can you shift your own state because of your own awareness of yourself? Can you shift your own state such that in that moment where it matters the most, you can be 100% there and 100% present with the people that you're trying to communicate with and express yourself to? And so this practice of being present in our voice exercise practice is also about being able to be present in every single moment of our lives, being present in the here and now, and it spills over into everything that we do as well. Because do you want to live those 50 weeks of the year leading up to your 2-week vacation just kind of going through the motions of life? Or do you want to really make the most of these moments as best as we can and live out our striving and struggling and mundane and routine moments as though it was like the best day of your life? Ultimately, there are no right or wrong choices here. It's really about, can we live with the consequences of the choices that we have made? And so 50 years in a week where you are working towards your 2-week vacation at the end of the year, do you want to go through those 50 years just kind of going through the motions, just, doing things on routine, doing things on repeat, kind of being like half asleep through life in order to get to those 2 weeks of a high point? Or would you want to make the most out of those 50 weeks of the year where even though things may seem boring, even though you're striving, even though you're struggling, somehow those 50 weeks of the year, every single day you can say that it has been the best day of your life? And the key to really being able to do that starts with us being able to make the most of each moment, and our ability to make the most of each moment comes back down to us being present to what's happening within us and what's happening around us, such that we can choose then most clearly how we want to make the best of each day, how we want to make the best of each moment leading up to the best life that we can possibly live. So if you have questions about this, feel free to ask them in the comments or through any of the links you see in the write-ups attached to these videos. And if you have enjoyed today's video, subscribe to my channel on YouTube, and I will see you next week.